Welcome to the Spiritual Principles Made Practical podcast. Today, we're lucky to have as our guest Kirk Drier. He's a retired with 34 years with the Fort Worth Police Department, and now he's a keynote speaker. So I'm fascinated to hear your story. How is it that you, after all that time as working for the police, are a keynote speaker? And one of the things that in the information that you sent me that I dearly love, I hang on to it with dear life, is that you know what? Get clear on what your principles are and don't compromise them.
Absolutely. And that's the basis of my message. So first and foremost, thank you for having me on, Scott. I really appreciate it. Uh, to fully answer the story or to the question that you posed, what gets me into this? I'll take you all the way back to 34 years ago. I was in the police academy, and there, back then they didn't really have a wellness program per se, but they did tell you, hey, you got to take care of yourself. And they said, here's an unsettling fact. The average lifespan of a police officer post-retirement is 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah, that was huge. And that kind of hit me. Like, okay, is
Yeah.
it? And then, as I got on the job, I worked the job and I realized over the years, okay, well, it's understandable. Number one, we work cruddy hours. Number two, we eat like trash while we're working. And a lot of cortisol, stress, adrenaline. They say law enforcement is 99% boredom and 1% sheer terror. And
Yeah.
so those emotional roller coasters, the PTSD that we carry, it's not like soldiers going into war where, bam, okay, we got this barrage of missiles and you've got a huge spark of a PTSD-inducing incident over a short period. For law enforcement and fire service, all your first responders, it's a slow drip of going to that accident and or going to the drowning at the pool and seeing the toddler that died. It's going seeing the young man who took his own life because his girlfriend ejected him. The horrific car wreck that killed a family of four senselessly. Man's inhumanity toward other man and that human condition, it wears on you, wears on your soul.
Yeah.
Now, when you're on the job, you got if you got a partner, well, you spend more time with the guys and gals you work with, and typically than you'll spend with your own family, including your spouse. So that is your social safety net. But when you retire,
It's gone.
you got off the train, but that train is still going down the track, and you are farther and farther and farther in the distance, and so are they.
Yeah.
And fairly quickly, most cops find themselves, wow, I left the one thing that kept me going.
Yeah.
And it becomes a lonely world. I saw that coming. I saw the writing on the wall over my years. I had a buddy, he had left the department, went off, did some other stuff, and this is probably 10 years ago, a little more than that. He says, Kirk, you got to get into networking, man. I've been networking. This is greatness, et cetera, et cetera. And at the time, I just finished a master's in criminal, or I was finishing a master's in criminal justice. I was about to go get an MBA. The criminal justice degree was low-hanging fruit. The MBA was for the after.
Okay.
And he told me about networking, and I started. I came up with a community engagement project. I partnered the police department with social services, education, employment services for a targeted project, survey all the residents of an apartment, identify all their needs, and bring a tailored prescription of services to each family. And in
Wow.
that process, I started developing all these friends, and then I ended up getting on stage quite, and speaking in a lot of different venues, and I found that I really like that. And I found that, you know, that one of the things I was dealing with a lot of the nonprofits and social service organizations, and I found that a lot of them um, they they don't have a lot of leadership training.
No.
A lot of but the military and law enforcement law enforcement and fire service, they push a lot of leadership training because it's expected. When you're the first responder, when you get on scene, you're supposed to be the guy who solves the problems.
Right.
Even the base officer is a leader in that regard. And then the supervisor that comes on the scene, and the bigger incidents get higher supervisors involved. And you're leading people in crisis environments. And those leadership skills I found are very transferable to corporate America and the nonprofit world. But they're not getting a lot of some of this, especially this next generation that's coming through. They're not getting a lot of the principles that we learned. So that's the long answer.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, and also it's like it's the engagement, right? So you won't be one of those 5-year people.
No, 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 no. And for me, okay, have you ever heard of Blue Zones? Blue Zones Project?
No.
Um, they're big in going to the corporate world and partnering with them, and sending messages to the employees. Hey, eat your vegetables. Hey, do this. Here's eat less red meat, or whatever to help you live longer. Blue Zones Project several years ago came out with a study that they had done, and they found that one of the indicators of people who are going to live a longer life, the prime indicator, is, do you still have a purpose?
Yeah.
And I think you and the spiritual work that you do, you can very well relate to that. You
Oh
speak
yeah.
you
Oh
speak
yeah.
of those type of things. The win-win, the meditation stuff you talk about in your podcast. I mean, absolutely that stuff applies. Celebrate, tell yourself, acknowledge. I just listened to one a little bit ago. Acknowledge that when you got it right, hey, I got this right, and accept that you do have value. So that stuff I take to heart, and that's part of my leadership platform. Get moral clarity, but then push your people to do the same.
That's awesome. So, what? I don't even know if this is like a reasonable question to ask, but if you had to pick one piece of leadership that you felt was most impactful that you were able to share with people, what would that be? And if that's a bad question, just say pass and we'll move on.
So my world's been a little bit different than these are. I was Marine Corps, then I was Police Department, was Desert Storm, and the leadership lesson that has sat with me the longest, and that I've found, and it's all encompassing. It's so broad though.
It's all right.
And there's a story behind it. I'm not going to get into the story; it's very long. But I was in Desert Storm, and I was taking care of my man, and I did so in an unconventional manner. I ended up scoring this group of 70 people that I was working with. I scored them a supply of hot chow when we were eating, 3 meals a day of cold rations, and it's the small things, right? So anyway, I'm thinking I'm going to get when the captain who's over this port that I'm working at finds this out. I get summoned to his, to see him, and I'm thinking I am just going to get destroyed. And he finds that out, and he's like, he said, did you do this? I said, yeah. And he says, who told you to do this? I said, nobody told me to do this. Took it upon myself. And my people and those around me, they're not getting hot chow. I secured us a line of hot chow from the ships that are coming in, and it's not costing anybody anything. Nobody's out, but I'll tell you what, it's improving the morale of the guys. And this guy said, okay, let's take a walk. And we talked a little bit, and he says to me, in all you do, remember this: mission, men, me, in that order. You take care of the mission. That is the first thing that we do. That is why we are here. You take care of your personnel, men, women. It's Marine Corps. But anyway, it applies in the corporate world as well. You take care of your people, and that doesn't just mean make sure that they have the tools to do the job, but also, that old adage: people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That's real.
It is. It
And
is.
and then that's very real for leadership. People aren't going to want to follow you until they know that you care about them. Get to know your people. Get to know about them. What are their concerns? And that way, when they're off, you can register, hey, something's going on here. Let me figure that out and say, or if we can, maybe there's a way we can help this guy or gal. And then take care of yourself. And that take care of yourself means, obviously not at the expense of your people, but you have to do self-care. You got to exercise. You got to, your spirituality. You eat properly, meditation. Those type of things. You can't take care of others unless you take care of yourself. And so,
Yeah.
and me in that order.
Yeah, years ago I had that discussion with my wife. I said, look, if I, and it may sound weird, some of the things that count as taking care of me, but if
Hmm.
they're really important to me, then they're really important to me, and that's taking care of me, and so I mean, at that time it was tennis camp, right? But I'd always wanted to go to tennis camp my whole life, right? And it was like, and now I finally had a chance to do it, and it was like, and I said, look, this is, it would break my heart not to do this, and I'm
Sure.
only going to be gone a couple days. And it's not, it's not huge.
It's not going to break the bank. It's not going to end the world.
I said, but, I mean, but you don't want to be living with a husband that resents you, right? And,
Yes.
and,
Well, it's that unrealized potential, those unreal, like, I want to do that. I think I can do this,
yeah,
and if you don't get to do that, the world gets gray. And again, my leadership system, zero gray.
yeah. So my wife isn't well, and I went to a program put on by our local healthcare district.
Mhm.
And my big takeaway from that was they said that 40% of caregivers die before the person they're caring for because they don't take care of themselves.
I believe that stat. In my family, my parents were dealing with a similar situation. And I'm watching my mom and her anxiety just blowing up through the roof, dealing with my stepfather. He's got advanced dementia,
Yeah, it's tough.
and well, there's a reason they call it the long goodbye. Uh,
Yeah.
it's very tough, and uh, that that self-care for caretakers, or taking care of those who take care. Uh, I learned that several years ago. It was a whole different story. I'm not going to go into the details, but I was in Thailand for a semester of master's work in peace studies, courtesy of Rotary International.
Ah,
And so we're learning all these strategies of this is basically, okay, the shooting war stopped, but we still have this conflict. And how do you resolve that? And this was a 13-week program I'm in, and one of those weeks was entirely dedicated to self-care. And there's camps out there for people for those responders to go to decompress. There's all kinds of programs for that, but that's a whole industry in itself. And in law enforcement, one of the things that I'm very thankful to see is it's been in the past decade or so that there's been more emphasis placed on self-care and well-being. My department just a few years ago started a wellness unit that is very robust and has the positive side stuff, but also has the negative side tracking, like a tracking program for, okay, this officer's getting a lot of rudeness complaints lately, or he's getting a higher than normal use of forces. Let's talk to him and let's see what we can do on that. Those type of things are so important to what we do.
yeah, it really is. I mean, just the polarization that exists everywhere in our society today
Mhm.
really needs those of us that are inspired to bring people together to do their thing because, um, I mean, from where I sit at least, the concept that what I do to anybody else, I do to myself is a very real and relatable concept. And,
Absolutely.
and so, even when I see somebody behaving badly, I'm trying to say, well, okay, am I capable of understanding what's behind that? And can I be uh, present enough to create a atmosphere of acceptance that is so powerful or powerful enough that they'll confide in me what's bothering them and
Sure.
just get it off their chest.
Mhm. I
Confession's
get
good for the
that.
soul kind of thing.
It's
And and I've had some amazing experiences in my life with people picking fights with me.
okay.
And
In person or online or what?
oh, in person. Oh,
Okay.
and I mean, on a good day, I'm 5'6", so I mean, I'm not a big guy.
Right.
And these guys in these instances were close to twice my size. And uh,
Shouldn't hang out in those biker bars, man.
well, one of them was when I was in,
I'm
no, no,
kidding.
no, no, I mean, yeah, right. One of them was when I was in high school.
Okay.
And this guy and we were and I went to a white high school and we were playing a black high school and don't get me wrong, I mean, lady that raised me was black, so I got no issue
Sure, but
there. But
yeah.
but he said to me, "White boy, I'm gonna kick your ass."
Hmm.
And I said, "Well, it takes two to fight, and I'm not willing, and there's only one of you." And I studied about 6 years in martial arts by then. But one of the things that you learn in martial arts is that you can't. There's always somebody better than you when it comes to fighting. So it wasn't a given that I was going to really be able to handle that situation if I got attacked.
Right.
And so I started walking off slowly, and then he came out with like, I'm, chicken, coward,
Right. Right. Yeah.
and I just turned and said, look, you know what? You call me any name you want. I'm still not willing to fight you. And I just kept going. And what I left with was the idea that there was something in my peace and self-confidence that he didn't understand and that he was not comfortable pursuing this. Because as it happened, he didn't come after me. And I
Mhm.
didn't run away. I walked, and in every few steps, I turned and looked to see where he was.
Yeah,
And,
yeah, you're not getting
I
attacked.
mean, and my knees were bent and the energy was, flowing out my fingers. And, I was primed and ready if the worst happened. But I believe uh, that's scalable.
It is absolutely scalable.
That's scalable, and
And
that heads of countries, but more basic and fundamental, is that heads of countries are people more than they're heads of countries. They might
well, that's
come and
everybody.
go as a head of a country, but they're
Mhm.
not going to come and go as a head of a people. So if you find something that works with people, it ought to work with heads of countries because they're people.
You know, I was thinking on the way over here, I just had to run an errand a little bit ago, and I came back and I was on my way home, and I was thinking something on a very similar vein. The whole, how do you make peace? And you're right with that, but yes, for the individual, but for the collective, I think you have to solve deeper. And for you know, like the inner city community, what I see. Um, well, I'll tell you what, getting people living wage jobs sure goes a long ways. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
those type of things to removing those obstacles. I guess we're coming at the issue from different angles. I look at, for instance, domestic violence in our city. Or excuse me, not just looking at the domestic violence angle, 41% of all aggravated offenses, meaning someone used a weapon, someone went to the hospital or both, threatened a weapon, like aggravated assault, ag robbery, ag sexual, so those type of things. All the aggravated offenses, 41% happen in the home.
Wow. I guess I'm not surprised. I didn't know the number, but it
You
doesn't
can't put
shock
a
me.
cop, and you can't put a cop in every home,
No,
but it doesn't happen in a vacuum.
correct.
Okay. Guy doesn't get off work and say, you know what, I'm gonna beat up my wife tonight. That's not how it happens. He he gets off from his lousy job that he's not making enough money at, maybe a second or third job. He's driving his hoopty car. Tags are out on it. Oh my gosh, the cops are following me. I've got warrants from the last time I got stopped. Is today the day that I'm going to jail? I can't afford to go to jail and get my car impounded and then lose my job. And, he gets home, he's stressed out, he's possibly self-medicating, you
Oh
know,
yeah,
probably self-medicating, illicit or illicit drugs. Um, he gets home, the kid's crying, the kid's sick, man, sick again. I, I'm still paying off the last doctor bill. And she's on the phone blabbing to her sister about something. Why is my dinner not ready? All I ask is for that. He says some words, she says some words, there's some name calling. Boom. I just wrote you the script for about 85 to 90% of the domestic violence.
yeah. No,
And,
I mean, I don't think we're as far apart as you think
and
because
the
one
point
of
is, there's so many pieces.
there
Tick,
are.
tick, tick. And what if we were to look and say, okay, hey, we could maybe address this one. And if we eased this one up, have you heard of ACEs, adverse childhood experiences?
No,
That's a sociological, psychological term. So ACEs is buzzword. Five or more rewires your brain into a permanent flight or fight mode that would take years and years of very aggressive psychotherapy to reverse.
yeah,
Those
yeah,
ACEs are things like watching daddy beat mommy, watching daddy go to jail, visiting daddy in prison, seeing the homeless guy down the street get stabbed, seeing this person overdose, seeing the drive-by shooting, all of this stuff.
right.
Okay. And people carry that in, as grown-ups, and their kids end up in the same system. And a man goes to jail, the chances of his children going to jail 20 times greater
Yeah,
than the average.
yeah,
So looking at those things, if we can solve for those things, and I think a lot of that boils back down to, again, getting the job training, job placement, solving for those. There's 15,000 nonprofits in my county.
wow.
15,000. If you got an issue, someone can solve it, but nobody talks. Everybody's competing for resources.
Yeah,
If you, if
yeah,
you
that's
get
not right.
if you get this one and this one and this one and this one to collaborate and put forth something, maybe we can, maybe we look at the the patient, if you will, the client, and say, what all do they need, and can we push all that stuff to bear on them? Can we stabilize that family unit? And back to the, circling back to the leadership thing. One of my big passions is the nonprofit stuff and the collaboration, and that requires leadership.
Absolutely. You know what they should do? They should run it like the fire department, right? With an incident commander.
Problem is they're all competing for dollars. Except
Well,
United Way, United Way runs a lot of the collaborative efforts for the others. Your big boys tend to, but yeah, you're right. It should be. Uh, I've been on a project that did a lot of that several years ago, and it got turned into a nonprofit in town. So there is success in that. But again, I think we're approaching the same issue, just
absolutely.
different
Absolutely.
ends, and it boils down to we're all people, and
Absolutely.
people want. I don't care where you live, whether you're here, whether you're Africa, whether you're uh, whether you're in an affluent community, whether you're in a poor community, but in America especially, people want about three things. Number one, I want a safe place to live. I don't want drive-bys on my street. I don't want my stuff ripped off. I want my kids to be able to play out in the yard. I want a safe community to live in. Number two, I want good schools to raise my children. I don't need them learning all this other crazy stuff, doctrine and ideology stuff when they haven't learned to read yet.
Yeah.
We're nationally we're having an issue with kids unable to read. when they're not learning to do math, and we're going to get overtaken by a couple other countries if we don't get a handle on this. Okay. And the third thing, so we've got safe community. I want good schools for my kid. And the third thing, I want the opportunity to chase success, whatever that looks like for me. Whether it's to be the best garbage man in the city or to be, something, in a different field, whatever that is. You want to be a mechanic, you want to be a pilot, you want to be an accountant. It's the ability to chase that. Just, get out of my way. Don't overread. Don't tell me I can't do this because I'm pick your ethnicity, color, flavor, whatever.
Right, right, right. Or childhood trauma level or whatever it is.
All of that. Don't tell me I can't. We need people telling us, yes, you can. Yes,
Yeah.
you can do that. And here's how we as a collective, as a community can help you achieve those dreams.
So, I mean, to me, I'm not as close to all this as you are because I don't have kids, so I don't deal with that, and it's been a year or two since I was in school,
Mhm.
but but from where I sit, it seems, and what I see, it seems like the least problematic of those three is the ability to chase your dreams. And maybe there's a little bit of a crabs
It
in a
should
bucket
be.
thing,
It should be.
but there's uh, I mean, some of the great things is that, I mean, you can go into the military and then you can learn while you're in the military and then leave with a GI Bill,
Yep. Which is a
and
great benefit now.
you
When I
know,
went through, it was okay. The GI Bill post 9/11 is a phenomenal
oh,
benefit.
they changed it. Okay, well,
They
good.
changed it and it is robust now.
Well, that's awesome because I mean, to me, that's a real um, avenue of mobility. You
Hmm.
know,
Absolutely.
you can really,
I've seen a lot
and
of people do
particularly
it.
if you're smart and apply yourself. And I wasn't in the military either, but I'm assuming that if you have an aptitude for electronics or mechanics or whatever you have an aptitude for, the Army probably needs specialists in that area because what they do is so many things, right?
No,
So,
as a matter of fact, that's what I did for the Marine Corps. I was an electronics technician.
okay.
I went to a year of school and they taught me how to test and troubleshoot and repair electronic systems. So it was great. Loved
Yeah,
it.
so I mean, it was good for you because you had a valuable marketable skill at that point, and it was good for the Army because they had capable people to get their equipment running.
Well, I hate to be the one to create for the Marine Corps.
Marine Corps, I'm sorry.
You know.
No, 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 I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. That slipped. I didn't know. No, I know, and everybody's proud of their branch and should be.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. So, yeah, but my part of where the approach that I'm taking, and I think that, as you say, we need to approach it from every direction.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that I really, subscribe to as a thought is that leadership or example is the most powerful form of leadership. And so, what I'm advocating for is to put a microphone in the hands of those philanthropists that are using their money in an effort to improve things in the world,
Okay.
and have them share their story about how it's enriched their lives
Mhm.
in the hopes that it will inspire other people to become philanthropists that have that kind of money, because there are, I don't know the exact numbers, but a crazy percentage of the wealth of the United States in terms of dollars
Mhm.
is concentrated among like just 1 or 2% or less
Yes,
of the
it is.
population.
It
And
is. And
and
that's
they
not a
can and they can still give, fund all kinds of programs that uplift communities and
sure.
society and still have money for their boats and their planes and their whatever else they
Absolutely.
want to do.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that because that distribution of wealth has through most of the history of America and the world been that way, where the majority is in, the hands of the majority of the money is in the hands of a few people. I mean, you look back to the turn of the 20th century, 1800s to the 1900s, the Gettys, the Morgans,
Oh yeah.
those guys. I was in New York City a couple weeks ago and went to the Morgan Library
Hmm.
in downtown, Midtown Manhattan, and I'm looking at this thing, and this thing's, I mean, this is massive, and it's beautiful. Have you ever seen this?
No.
Okay, so the building was in the the classical style and whatever the architecture, but I mean this giant columns and everything. And J.P. Morgan, like the banker. Okay, this guy found his money. I've got all these books that I've collected. I want a place to store them, so I'm going to put them here. And I'm going to build this crazy big, beautiful library for my collection. And then he runs out of room, so he builds an annex right next to it that's almost as big, or it's about the same size, but it's not as ornate because he didn't want it to overshadow the main
Right,
one.
right, right.
This dude's building a building that looks like the Capitol. It's like, wow. And then now it's open to the public. You got to pay admission, but that's his gift to society. And
Right.
you look at like in Fort Worth, the Bass family is a big benefactor here. And so they built Bass Hall, which is this beautiful uh, entertainment venue, like for musicals and orchestra and all that. It's where the symphony plays. And so there are people that do that,
Right.
but you're not seeing it as much. You don't see it advertised as much as you do like the ones from way back, that are building these big places. But it's still happening.
It
It's
is,
still happening.
it is still happening. And as a society, we'd be a lot better off if, this is a free country, right? So you get to do whatever you want. But if we um, demonstrated through people talking about their experience of how it enriched their lives to spend a
Sure.
portion of the money that they're never going to use to uplift society and how that enriched their lives. Because while there are people doing it, there are a lot more that could be doing a lot more and
So
and enriching themselves,
sure. And I would say
right?
look at that.
In addition to, the society,
Right.
and so that's
Oh, you look
one
at
of the
Gates
things that
though.
I hope to do one day is to be able to uh, have a mechanism in place where I can have people, and it wouldn't just be like, billionaire philanthropists, right? It would be people that grew up in the worst of circumstances, right? And found their way out of that and just would go back into the neighborhoods where they grew up and tell their story so that people could look at them and say, God, that guy grew up on my block and
Well,
look what he
you do
did.
see
And
that.
maybe I can do that too, kind of thing,
You do see that. Unfortunately, it's like professional athletes where the chances of the kids from that community making it to that are, a lot slimmer.
Right. But even professional athletes, if you went and you told them, you say, look, you know what? Don't talk about so much making it in sports. Talk about the motivation that you
Right.
had, the practice that you had, the dedication that you had, the setbacks that you had that you came back from, and
Yep,
and let them know that they can apply that to any area. It's not just applicable in sports.
that's true. I don't know, but you talk about philanthropy in the billionaire class. Bill Gates or the Gates Foundation is huge on vaccinations. Um,
Yeah.
so I've been involved with Rotary, obviously. Rotary has this thing called the Polio Plus campaign that
Right.
they've back in '88 they dedicated said, okay, hey, there's 288,000 new cases of wild polio every year. We think we can eradicate it. Rotary raises the money. Last I'd heard, every dollar that Rotary makes, the Gates Foundation matches 2 to 1.
Okay.
And
Good.
then, and I'd heard, I haven't confirmed that the U.S. State Department matches that on a 3 to 1.
Wow.
So that 1 million raised becomes $6 million through not just private billionaire investment, through their foundations, but also uh, through our own government doing that type of work. But there's a lot out there. A lot of it you don't see. Like, and in my work here in the city, like we have four that I know of major foundations that were guys who've made it in our city, billionaires. We've got the Richardson Foundation, we've got the Rainwater Foundation. The Basses have their stuff. The Moncriefs, Moncrief's a big oil family, built a cancer center here in town. Where I like where you're going with this on this next class, especially like the tech billionaires. It'd be cool to see them building stuff that, the philanthropic side, and to see that view of, okay, you did this, how'd you feel about it, blah, blah, blah. But then also hit them with the other side, the actual user experience, where, yeah, you interview that guy. Now go interview, I don't know, interview the 12-year-old that went to the museum for the first time or whatever you see what I'm getting at? You've got,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
here's
You
what
got.
you did. Now, by the way, we're going to show you who received that gift.
Yeah. And it would be great to have them on the stage together,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
right? Because that would really drive it home. Because when you're there and you're hearing about, oh my God, I really changed this kid's life forever, and
How
it's
about
like
putting that
that's
entire
impactful.
class? How about putting that entire class in the auditorium?
Yeah.
That kid is, and hey, we just visited your museum or your whatever.
Yeah. And there's another piece too, which is that there, I love Brian Tracy, and I remember his quotes from decades ago when I listened to his tapes. And one of the things that he said that stuck with me is that it's really a shame when you see people working real hard at doing something that isn't really working and doesn't really need to be done. And one of the things that I um, am out there with is the idea that, and I practice it as best I can, is that the only way to make a greater and more positive contribution to the world is to work on yourself, because then you have more. Because if you work on yourself, you have more to offer.
That is true.
And so one of the things that I promote is this idea that until you address people's thinking,
Mhm.
nothing is going to permanently change. And I was in Rotary for a while too, and one of the things they did was they went. At least I think this was Rotary. I've been involved in a lot of service organizations over the years, but they went to Africa and they drilled water wells in places that didn't have water, where people
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
walking like miles, right,
Yep.
and carrying
Still
water
doing it.
like miles each way, right?
Rotary
And
still does it.
and they got that running and stuff and everything and told them how to do it, and they left, and it fell into disrepair because
Mhm.
they didn't have the change in thinking
Yep.
that went with that solution.
Correct.
And so
That's part of the issue.
yeah, and so so one of the things that I'm trying to put out there to people that want to make a difference is that the more that we can understand our mind and our thinking and how that works,
Mhm.
the more we can help other people understand that. And that is the source of all lasting change.
Sure. There's a great book out there, several years old now. It's called Influencer. Have you read Influencer?
No, I have not.
It talks about the six things that are required to actually make change in behavior. And it starts with, is the person willing and are they capable? And well, is their community around them willing and are they capable of supporting them in that? That's the crabs in the bucket
Yeah,
mentality
yeah, yeah.
of that, you know, who you think you are getting a degree, you think you're better than us, that type of thing. But
Oh, yeah.
then also the actual system itself, the workplace or whatever they're going to be doing is that able and are willing and able to support that change. And that's where you get we did this for the community, but then it fell into disrepair because we didn't we didn't create a systemic change in, for in the thinking for that community and that, communicate to them clearly, that's my realm now, is that no gray area. You're communicating. It's not it's not just communication, but can they recite back to you what you just told them?
Right. Right.
I can tell you, but do you understand?
Yeah. There's hearing and then there's understanding.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of our biggest gaps.
Well, I'm trying to get into Congress, and I've got
Okay.
this lady, I don't know her well, but a friend of mine does, and I've met her and stuff, and she's likely to be a member of the House of Representatives next year.
Good.
And she's got a real history of bringing people together from both sides of the aisle to get common sense things done. And so I'm going
Sure.
to see what I can do to support her and stuff because the um, our government is the decider about a tremendous amount of resource deployment,
Absolutely it is.
and that
Because we've become reliant on that.
yeah, and it's
And I say that it's not a judgment. Was what I'm getting at is
yeah, no, I get you,
years ago, a town floods, and everyone in the community who is not affected would come in and assist those in the affected areas of the community out of their own charity and their own kindness, and because it's the right thing to do.
and small town America is still pretty much that way.
It is, but large towns like I think St. Louis I can't remember. It was like 100 years ago. This pretty good sized city flooded, and everyone from the neighboring came in and they took care of it. We didn't have FEMA. We didn't have all of these services that the government provides, and then because of these disasters, that's how FEMA was born. But the problem now becomes now we're reliant on the government to do it instead of us.
Yeah, and sort of the
Lose
government
that.
is and should be the avenue of last resort.
But right, and when we, no, the government will take care of it. We lose that spark of humanity that says, I'm my brother's keeper. I've got to take care of him or her. I've got to help them. And small town America still has more, but in your larger cities, you see less of that and more reliance on public services.
No, that's true and such, and that's where I think, leadership is important because, you go to Rotary and you go to Lions, right? And there are people there that are active in the community and that they do experience that inner warmth, I'll call it, and inner sense of value and purpose, doing stuff for their community, and they have scholarships and they have, all kinds of different, they have safe houses and trying to think of various things that the uh, organizations that I've been part of over the years have done, and so they are active and they do care and they do, a lot. Now they don't do everything, but they do a lot. And so it's not dead, but it's not at the level of robustness that you're describing that would be better for everybody, really. But it takes leadership, right? It takes people saying, I did this, and it takes people holding them up as an example. There's a fellow. Oh, did I lose you? Oops. Oh, you're back. Okay. Let me get you in. Come on. Are you in?
You are? Sorry
Okay, I
about
can hear you. I can't see you.
that.
There you are.
We got
Okay.
a thunderstorm rolling through here right now, and it knocked out the internet.
No worries. Well, you made it work, so that's good. But yeah,
My phone.
but it's I'll give you an example. So we have where I am in Southern California, we have fires, and there's a fella that is a member of Rotary and stuff, and he is a property manager, and he went to all of his clients that had vacant properties and asked for their permission to put people that, whose houses burned down, up for free in their vacant units. And they, by and large, said, yeah, fine, and stuff. But I think that but what didn't happen is I didn't see that as an inspiring example on the news, right? Of like, this is what we're capable of doing as a community, and hats off to this guy. And if you can do something, whatever it is, follow his example and do that, and that's what I'd like to see more of.
And, okay.
Lost you again. Well, we're having technical difficulties here. There's a storm, and apparently the internet keeps coming in and out. So that's why um, we're intermittent. Okay, back
All
again.
right,
Okay,
we're back in
but you don't
business.
control the weather, so we'll just do the best we can.
The weather yet. We're working on it. So I try to stay out, I try to stay out of the politics on this type of stuff. But
No,
why
I disagree. Just one sec.
why
I
don't
disagree.
we
I think we
see that?
should. I think we should talk about politics because
So,
that
but
needs
why
healing
don't
just
we
like
see
everything
that?
else.
Why don't we see that type of stuff in the news?
What are people doing good stuff or
Yeah. Well, I mean, you do in the local news,
so
like, the
well,
Channel 4 or whatever station out there. I'm sure they'll do a nice human interest story here and there.
right. So that's what
Don't
they
do
started.
that.
That's what they've started doing is that they've started putting in, feel good stuff now and then, right? But
Mhm.
I think they still subscribe to the concept that if it bleeds, it leads.
Well,
Right?
absolutely. And
And they say that and I think they're mistaken about this, but they believe that to earn money and fulfill what they feel is their job of maximizing profits, that they've got to have the bulk of what's aired negative and fighting and destructive.
I think, to be honest, without going too far down that conspiracy rabbit hole, I think uh, there's something to be said about the, hey, we're going to get you fighting with you, so never mind the man behind the curtain over here, what he's doing, or
But
the group
yeah, that's part of it. That that
that are doing some pretty crazy stuff that we're busy infighting with each other.
That's part of it, and that's one of the things that I've heard about the reason behind the education system not being as effective as it should be is that and there are a group of people that they don't want an educated populace.
I've heard that. I have a hard time accepting that, knowing having met the teachers and the
Right,
principals of the schools and knowing several of them, intimately as friends, and
right.
I have a hard time with that.
Well, it may or may not be
But
true. I don't know,
then
but
again,
um,
but there is some truth in an educated populace is a lot harder to control because
and, and
they question.
and that's where I think win-win is really the solution that we're looking for, right? Because we don't want to control people. We want people to do the right thing because they know it's in their interest to do the right thing, right? It's like you're kind and loving to your family, and you don't have to think about it because you love your family and you're going to do whatever you can for your family, and that's just how it is. Well, if we start thinking of start expanding the boundaries of who we think of as family, then you know what? All kinds of problems get solved,
I agree. I agree.
and so and that's my thing that has grabbed my attention more than decades ago is the idea that we're all one, that we're all family, we're all part of this,
I've
and so
seen that on your, yeah.
yeah, so I'm doing, I'm approaching it from every angle I can to try to make that relatable and comprehensible to people and have it affect people's behavior. Because if we're all one, then, like I said earlier, uh, what we do to anybody, we're doing to ourselves. And so that's a motivator to be kind and supportive of other people.
It is. I know that when I keynote, I talk about some of this stuff. I've never understood, like I saw it early, I was on the job 34 years. So, talking early 90s, I came on. And I've seen it there. I've seen it in other organizations as well. But even in my own organization back in the day, you'd see these guys at the higher ranks, and they're trying to get into the appointed position where you take a test, only take you so high, and then above that, the chief has to select you. And these guys would be not only would be they would be happy about the other guy's failure.
Right, right. But they would try
They
and
do what
contribute
they
to it
can
too.
to help him fail,
Yeah.
as if it's a zero-sum game that he fails, therefore I might be the one to promote up. And it's and supervisors who, like, I'm going to teach my subordinate, my direct report, enough to do the job, but not enough to replace me. I got news for you, friend. Everybody's going to be replaced at one point or another, because none of us gets out of here alive.
Yeah, I mean, and there, one of the books I wrote is transitioning from zero sum to win-win thinking, and it talks about
Yeah,
the cost that you incur, or that people incur when they engage in zero sum thinking, and I even use examples of, like, I'm a tennis player, of being on the tennis court, some of the most fun and enjoyable and wonderful games I've played. I actually lost, but I played outstandingly well,
sure.
and we were talking
Absolutely.
trash the whole time, and it was just, and every point was just an amazing point, and it was like, and it was wonderful, and you'd have a hard time convincing me that it was that I lost, and I should feel bad because I lost. I played
Yeah.
the best tennis of my life, and you know
Right.
what? And the other guy was just better, but
And
that's, I don't
but you
care,
play for love of the game. Right.
and it's like, and I think that, the zero sum thinking is alive and well. I had a client that was an attorney. So I'm also a mortgage broker, and I've been doing that for 40 years. But one of my clients was an attorney, and he was an attorney for some of the big corporations and banks and stuff. And he told me, he said, it's really sad. He says, those people, all they see is the person above them on the net worth ladder. And that's all they think about, is overcoming
Right. And
the guy above them on the net worth ladder.
I mean,
Oh,
okay,
man.
fine, fun to chase goals, but man, have some balance in your life.
Yeah, but also understand that money's a tool, it's not an end.
Absolutely, it is.
And
Absolutely.
if you're, it's like I say, if I had unlimited funds, I'd be buying television time, putting people on to share their stories there, so they'd be
That'd
inspiring
be
examples.
kind of cool.
I'd be teaching non-recidivism classes that have been proven effective in the prisons. I'd be, I mean, I got you, if I ever become a multi-billionaire, I've got uses for that money.
Sure. Sure. My wife goes to a local prison that has an entrepreneurship program where these inmates, the ones that have, like, okay, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. You're going to be getting out in, the next few years. They learn business skills. They come up with business ideas. My wife comes in with a group, and these guys pitch their ideas almost like it's what was that, The
Shark
Apprentice?
Tank.
it's like one of those type of things. They
Yeah.
pitch ideas to them, and it's not harsh like, it's not the drama of,
Right,
reality
right, right, right,
TV,
right.
but they pitch the ideas, and my wife and her cohort, okay, well, have you thought about this, and have you thought about
Right.
this and
Help
this?
them refine it.
And these guys are actually competing for who has the best ideas, and some of them, when they get out, they'll go do those. I mean, but then again, you get the crazy ones. It's like, hey, I'm going to go open a daycare when I get out. It's like, all right, hold on, dude, hold on. No, you're not. No, you're not. But nonetheless, um, like I said before, having a living wage job or
Yeah,
the ability to earn legally goes a long way. And it goes
absolutely.
a long way towards stopping recidivism.
All
And
of
on
that.
twofold. First of all, you got income. And number two, you got something you could lose.
Right, right. You've got skin in the game.
Exactly. And if you got skin in the game, man, that changes things. And I'll tell you something else about that. For me, home ownership's a big thing. And if we can move people from our low income apartments and ultimately get them those living wage jobs, get them the financial skills and not just hearing it, but understanding it, as we talked about, that they can move from that into home ownership, that the fact that they've made it to home ownership, that's not an end, that's a milestone. And that's a big marker that says, okay, now you are self-sufficient enough that you get it and you can actually start building now. An added benefit of that? A, not all, but most of the racial issues go away at that point.
Really.
Yeah, yeah. So there's studies on that. Home ownership tends to, having a living wage job and a home to go, like you are actually have a mortgage, you're mowing your yard on the weekend. I'm not talking renting. I'm talking, you have a mortgage, you're going to your job. Yeah, because why? We're all in the same team now. You and the neighbor across the street, he may be Bangladeshi and you may be, you know, whatever, Hispanic, pick one, Asian, Anglo, it doesn't matter. Good family or good communities, good schools, living wage jobs. It's all that's what it's about, man. You that's what everyone's striving for. That's the American, that opportunity to succeed.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it's one of the things that try to take advantage to say every time I can is that to all those people that are thriving at the highest socioeconomic level is that you're only doing that because of the society that you live in, and that you have a responsibility to make sure that the goose that's laying those golden eggs doesn't die.
That's
You
true.
have a responsibility to dig in and help solve the problems of society, and one of which is that mobility isn't what it should be in our society, and that they need to jump in and
We
do
are
that
losing our
because
middle class.
yeah, because I mean if you have a society, right, where there's no middle class and there's concentration of wealth at the top and everybody else is like
Mhm.
slaves, that society's not going to be around for very long.
And the 20th century was the biggest producer of the middle class, especially post World War II. That 40s, 50s, 60s, at the end of the 70s, that middle class just really thrived. And economic conditions were right for it. Now, granted, we were in a Cold War with the Soviet Union for most of that, but
But that's
economic conditions are right. This last year of what is it, quantitative, or not the last year, the last decade or so of quantitative easing, where we're just printing money like crazy. Yeah, that's horrible for people's life savings. You know,
yeah.
when that dollar is worth half of what it was worth 10, 15 years ago, as opposed to 25 years on a normal inflationary cycle, that's a problem. That's a hidden tax.
Yeah, well, essentially, at least the way I see it, is that we're spending huge amounts of money and that we're not getting any return at all on.
Absolutely. We're not just spending it. If you watch the news, we're getting bilked and
Yeah.
like legitimately bilked by foreign entities and everything else, and you're finding that, millions and millions of dollars are leaving America in suitcases going to third world countries. And oh yeah, we've kind of known about this, but we're not doing anything about it. It's what the heck? That's my money. That's your money. And that should be going. But meanwhile, we got military veterans that served our country in times of war that are living on the street. We
Yeah.
got, we've got a mental health crisis in our nation right now. We've got so many of our own issues that, yeah, we have the means to take care of it.
My thought about, because when I mean, I see the problems and then my mind initially right away tries to jump to, okay, what's the solution?
Mhm.
And one of the things that I see in politics today is that politicians can roughly be put into two groups. One group is that people that are trying to um, fill that need for power by having power over other people.
Right?
And the only power that satisfies is power over yourself. So if you have power over yourself, you don't really have any desire to have power over other people. And further,
I
if you
agree.
have power over yourself, you're going to be an inspiring example that's going to actually have greater impact on people than anything else you could do to say, you know what, I want that guy has power over himself and I like the cut of his jib. I want to emulate that and get power over myself.
Yep.
And so that's one group of politicians
Yep.
is they're looking for power where
Hmm.
it doesn't exist. They're not
Right.
looking inside for power. They're looking for, how much money can I bribe this person with, or how many rules can I make to force this type of behavior on those people or whatever. And
Sure.
then the other type of politician is in much smaller supply, and those people are people that feel that it's a service and it's an opportunity to uplift the world they live in.
Right. And you're right. They are in much smaller supply.
Right. But one of the things that I think about is that because I really believe in the inherent goodness of everybody, even in those where it's buried so deep we'll never see it, is that uh, work with the people who are trying to fulfill their need for power by trying to exert power externally and find a way to communicate to them that that's never going to satisfy you. If Hitler had taken over the entire world, I promise you it would not have satisfied you.
If someone had just given him better reviews on his art. I just
I don't
told
even know
him,
if he
man,
knew what
you're
he
a
was
good
doing,
artist.
you
You
know.
need to
He
pursue
was
this.
he was so drugged up. I mean, it's like who knows, right? I mean, he was just a drug addict.
Mhm.
And but my point is that no amount of external power was ever going to satisfy him or any other human being.
No.
It's only power over yourself, and I think that that's one of the things that will really help our government, straighten out and fly right better, is to
Yep.
understand that look, this is how you get power over your mind, and that's the real power is to be able to know what your thoughts are and to be able to exercise the power to choose which thoughts you act on and which thoughts you don't. That's true freedom and that's true power. And that
That's the
if
level
you
most people won't see.
and well,
But most people that you're talking a higher plane. For
I am.
most people will never actualize to that higher plane.
Well, my opinion, and that it's only that, is that
It's
uh,
possible.
we only have to reach like 3% of the world's population, and the rest of them will just follow along.
That's true if you look at all revolutions in history. That is true.
So I believe one of my gifts is that, and I saw this when I was in a mortgage broker too, is that uh, I'm able to gain acceptance with people from pretty much everywhere, every country, religion,
Sure.
ethnicity,
Mhm.
socioeconomic background, legal, criminal, pretty much everybody.
Okay.
And so, part of the challenge that I've laid out for myself is to um, see what I can do. I'm my goal that is driving me is that I want uh, win-win thinking to be the dominant thinking in the world. Not the only thinking in the world, we
Sure.
still have zero sum, we still have, other kinds of thinking, but my goal is for it to be the dominant thinking in the world. And it's something that I'm inspired to do. I mean, and people say you're crazy, and I go, yeah, okay, so what? I'm trying it anyway.
Yeah, no, you are crazy. I mean, I get that, but I feel the same way. But also on the realistic side, you've got a very uphill battle with so many people and so many different media pushing a completely. When you look at all the social media is about look at me, look at me, look at me, and some of that is good stuff,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
what we're doing here. This is
right.
good. But so much of it is turned into a narcissistic system that feeds, it reinforces that. And even the algorithms behind the social media that whatever I say that I like, it gives me more of that. So I get a constant
Right. You
feedback
get
loop of
reinforcement.
that.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
losing,
So
we're losing critical thinking, which it's easier to control people who aren't critically thinking. And
I
and
don't
so
want
you
to control them.
well, not I'm not you. I'm
Yeah.
saying, to
Yeah.
back to
Right.
earlier,
Yeah.
I'd heard this, but you talk about 3%. If you can get 3% to do it and the others will follow, they're still not actualized. They're just following who they think that cult of personality is at that point.
To some extent, but there's also kind of fake it till you make it. So it's like, well, gee, I didn't think helping this other person would make me feel good, but you know what? Much to my surprise and amazement, it did.
Yeah, and I've said that for years on a more basic platform. If you want to get over feeling sorry for yourself, go do something for someone else.
There you go, right? So
Go
there it is.
make some cookies and take them to the neighbors, to that woman with a bunch of kids out there, or go volunteer at the soup kitchen down the street.
And that thinking has been around for a long time. The idea that you'll feel better if you go and help. That's not new. So win-win is, it hasn't been recognized and labeled as such in a lot of cases, but you can point to
Been around forever.
behaviors like that have been around for like ever.
Absolutely. It's talked about, Christ talked about it in the Bible, and I mean, all of your major religions
Absolutely.
talk about, whether it's Buddhism or
All of
any of
them.
that. They
All of
all
them.
because they're why? Because
It's true.
it's like truths about humanity. Do
Right.
for others, and it will, and you get the reward. So, okay, that brings up that here's a philosophical question. If I'm doing for others and it makes me feel good, is that a selfish act?
Yes, and it's a good thing. I told my wife, I said, you know what? She said, it was before we got married. She said, you're really a selfish and self-centered person. And I say, yeah, it is. And you should be happy about that because one of the things that I really want for myself is I want to be an awesome husband.
Yeah,
And I want to do that for myself. I don't want to do it because it's going to create an obligation on your part to reciprocate.
exactly.
I want to do it and then I'm in a position of saying, I'm angry at you because I gave you 50 and you only gave me back 20,
Right.
right? That's no good. That doesn't make life better. I said, but I have control over how I behave. And if I behave and I'm an awesome husband and I wake up every morning and say, man, am I proud of the husband I've been yesterday and I'm going to do even better today. I said, that inures more to your benefit than me not being selfish.
True.
So,
And
so in me being selfish, part of my selfishness is experiencing the joy of lifting up other people.
sure. I agree with that.
So yeah, I'm selfish and proud of it, but in a good way.
Sure. Absolutely.
I'm selfish in a zero in a win-win way, not a zero-sum way.
Napoleon Hill even talked about, in Think and Grow Rich. One of the tenets of that is give to others, do for others, and it will return to you
If
tenfold.
if you don't have the expectation.
Exactly. Exactly.
Because I've met people that give to others and then they go like, hey, where's
Where's
it
mine?
coming
Yeah.
back to me? What's the deal? And I say the joy that you had when you gave it, that was the payoff, and anything that comes after is bonus, but it was worth it. So I've written 13 books and they haven't not much in sales. But you know what? But I got a lot out of writing the books and I've given away far more than I've sold and it enriches my life and it enriches the lives of the people that I've given them away to and the few people that have bought them, it's made a difference for them. But ultimately I didn't write uh, yes, I'd like to sell a lot of books and have more impact and earn more money. Yes, I would. And I'm still writing more books, even though the prospect of them selling isn't any higher than the prospect of selling the ones I've already written, because it lifts me up. It makes me stronger and more capable and able to share greater benefit with other people. And to me, that's the payoff.
Right. Very good.
So if I was only financially oriented, I'd have quit writing. I'd have quit all this stuff a long time ago.
And no good. I
You
hear
know,
you.
you
Sounds
know,
like you got a lot of irons in the fire.
I do, and I'm dealing with my own demons, and trying to feel
Welcome to humanity.
worthy of the contribution I feel I have to make. And it's uh, another thing that I want to say, and it's about uh, thinking well of ourselves.
Sure.
And I asked a rabbi friend of mine one time, I said, where does being conceited stop and or start and using your talents begin? And he said what I thought was just the greatest answer of all time. He said, evaluated it on the basis of it, is it work, does claiming that make you and everybody else better off? If it does, do that. If it doesn't, don't. And it's so okay, and um that's the measuring stick. And so I feel like I have really tremendous communication abilities. I feel I have tremendous ability to reach people, to communicate ideas that they would other be resistant to. I was at lunch with a guy and we were talking about people changing on a dime, and he said, "Oh, that never happens. That never happens. It's only over time." And so I gave him like a bunch of examples from my life when it changed on a dime. And the next thing he does is he starts telling me example after example after example in his life where his life has changed on a dime. And this
Yeah.
is after having spent a half an hour arguing with me that, yeah, that never happens. So I've got stories like that all over the place where I've been able to reach people that took the attitude that they were not reachable and neither were other people.
Everybody's reachable.
That's my position too.
Everybody's reachable. You didn't have
And it's like,
get your
what,
magic
and
packet.
and everybody's looking for acceptance. And so if you really listen to people, they'll tell you stuff that they would never even admit to themselves. And in doing that, they have cathartic releases, and then they see clearly avenues to benefit themselves and others that were always there, but they could never recognize before. And it's just being really good at acceptance is just what it means to be a healer.
It's funny you mentioned acceptance, and for years and years and years, working the job, I'd always said, there, but for the grace of God go I. If I had grown up in this person's circumstances with all their life experiences, et cetera, everything that made them, if I would experience that, I would be in their shoes. And it felt kind of trite, passe, it's okay, this is just. And then I remember, um, so went through a divorce and I've got kids and I was dealing with the ex, and we sometimes we'd get along, sometimes we wouldn't, and when we didn't, well, we did not. And one time she's doing something, it was felt hurtful and it felt personal, and I am just my dad is one of my closest friends, and I'm venting to him, she's doing this on, blah, she's doing this just to screw me over and just, and I was just on a tear. And my dad's a retired California Highway Patrol officer.
Okay.
Yeah. So I spent my summers in Orange County.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
so when I was a kid. But so anyway, he stops, or I finally stop venting, and he says, have you ever stopped to think maybe this isn't about you? And maybe she's just doing the best she can with what she's been given. Man, I flew off the handle. Wow. Not having any. I stormed off in the other room. And I sat and I pouted. As a grown man, right? I'm like 30 and I'm just like stewing. And the worst part about it, I'm like, yeah, he's right. He's right. That's the very tasted like ashes in my mouth. And he's right. And I went out a little while later. Like, you're right. You're right. And because that was made personal in that instance, and my anger and my dad, just pretty much bing clocking me in the head with that. It's always been at the forefront of my mind whenever there's a conflict. Doesn't matter which side. Maybe they're just doing the best they can with what they've got. I prefer to think people are inherently good.
Oh, yeah.
People are.
Uh,
I've seen evil. I've seen evil. I've seen some very, very disturbed individuals that you say everyone has good, and I have seen. I can only count them on my two hands, thankfully. But I've seen some really, really, really bad people. Um, that's the anomaly.
yeah.
I mean, we're talking demonic possession level.
Yeah. I mean, like I always say is that,
Again, that's
it,
the anomaly.
the Charles Mansons of the world are, the good isn't going to find expression, this go round with them. It's just not,
Correct. It's just not. It's not there. I'm
I mean, I believe that it's there. I
worried.
just believe that it's buried so deep that that it's not coming out.
Right. That if there ever was good, it ain't coming out.
Yeah.
But that's the anomaly.
Yeah.
That's not the masses. Most people,
Absolutely.
almost everyone has goodness in them.
And what's really striking to me, as more and more stuff happens over the internet, is that people will say things over the internet they would never say in person,
Of course. Of course. What is that Mike Tyson said? Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth or something. He also said something about the internet, like people say a lot of things that they wouldn't say if they knew that they were getting punched in the mouth for it. Yeah,
Yeah. But I think but that empathy and everybody wants somebody to hear and accept their story,
absolutely.
you
Yeah,
know.
that's what everyone's looking for is acceptance and
And
a voice.
people will, and if you give that to them, they'll, not all cases, but in most cases, they're going to be very grateful.
I agree with that, and I've witnessed that.
And at a minimum, not want to blow your head off.
Well, that's a start. I think that's a low bar. That's a starting point in there.
But yeah, and so I just, for whatever reason, and like I was saying before about the rabbi is that I think I've got skills and abilities, and I wanna use those skills and abilities for the maximum benefit I can create in the world. And I left a secure corporate job when I was 27
Okay.
and 27, 28, and worked for Union Carbide. And I went out on my own to try to do spiritual leadership then. And my dad was a depression baby. And he said, "Oh my God, don't do this.
It's fear.
Got employment for life. All the people you're working with have been there. It's like the only job they've ever had.
Yep. Yep.
They come out of school and they go to work there and they never work anywhere else. It's like, don't leave this." And I
Depression.
and I said to him, and I'm proud of myself to this day, because my response to him was, I've got to do all I can to make all I can out of my life. And I could take failing at that much better than I could take not trying. Because I'm not going to get to the end of my life and saying, what if I had tried to do the spiritual leadership that I was inspired to do and I wanted to do?
Hmm.
And what would have happened had I done that? And I don't want to have to be faced with that question.
Well, that
I'm out here, swinging for the fences. And if I go down, I'm going down swinging, and I'm okay with that.
and that takes us back to the opening question. Why am I doing this? For that reason. That you said it better than I could. But that's exactly my thinking. Why? Because I can. Because this is the mountain to climb. If I fail, okay. I know I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
But here's an opportunity to do something where I feel I can get a positive message out and help people become better leaders, become more um, moral, more centered, more positive leaders, and make the world a better place in doing so.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I love about doing these podcasts is I'm more and more coming away with the understanding that there's lots of us out there trying to, make this world a better place.
Absolutely.
And
And it's
working
going
on
to
leadership
take
skills.
it's going to take more.
Absolutely, absolutely. But one of the things that I really like is that it's decentralized. So if one of us falls off the boat, the ship doesn't sink.
Right. That's true. That's very true. And so how do you make it a movement?
Well, I think that I look to like the Soviet Union crumbling as an instructive example. And basically what happened is, and what I told my wife is that if enough people in a country decide things have to be different, they'll be different. There's no amount of
It's not a
army
big
or anything else that can stop that.
You mentioned 3%. You do know that's pretty much that was the Revolutionary War, was because 3% of the population in America decided we're not doing this anymore.
Yeah, I heard that number. I didn't know where it came from.
It was 3% started America
Yeah, but then, lots and lots of people got on board with it.
because it made sense. But those 3%, those were the committed ones.
Absolutely.
What is
And
it that
so I mean, and one of the things that I love about this community is that we're win-win folks. We're all trying to lift each other up. There isn't one of us that I've met yet that has the attitude that I'm going to step on you in order to elevate me. I haven't run across that at all, zero, and and
good?
and I'm happy about
It
that.
should be.
Yeah.
And you talk about commitment, makes me think, that's it's the chicken versus the pig at the breakfast table. One of them delivers an egg, the other one's committed.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's we all like our bacon.
We do. Anyway, well, hopefully we can get this thing moving forward. And
Well, I mean that, I mean that's just what it takes, and like I say, I'm in touch with someone who I'm hoping is going to be a member of Congress, come next year.
what
And
can I do to help you?
mm, I always tell everybody the most important thing I can say is there's two things that you can do that come to mind. One is do whatever you're inspired to do, and be the continue doing what you're doing, being the brightest light you can be. And then another is that somebody is helping me navigate the social media thing, which is like way past me, has told me that I should get a positive review once a week. So I already have one for this week. But if I could if I could email you the link and you could
Done.
lead a positive review of me and what I'm up to and stuff, that would be good. And I guess maybe the third thing is do what your buddy did, which is that if you have people that you think would be good guests that are, your ilk, put us together like your buddy did.
Okay.
And the more of us that interact, I learned things and had insights and inspiration talking to you that I've never had before. And so it led, so being here with you lifted me up, right? And that's what we want is we want to have as many interactions as we can where everybody is brighter, stronger, clearer, smarter.
I agree. I agree with that.
So those are three things that come to mind, and my door is always open. I mean, if you want somebody that is really on the far end of out there, I'll give you an example of how far on the end of out there we are. I am.
Okay.
Uh, in studying to understand the mind and all that it can do, what I've come to believe is that there are essentially three levels of consciousness that I can identify. One is being, in which I am everything. I am the entire all that ever existed. There's no time doesn't exist unless, nothing exists. It's just I'm there and it's being and you're and the same is true for everybody, right? Is we're just being. There's nothing to do because there's nothing outside of us. There's nothing to create because in order to create you have to have time, and the mind is the only thing that can create time.
It's a very Zen thing.
And that's so anyway, so I was just telling you like you how out there I am, right? And and
That's a lot of Zen Buddhism is
yeah.
based around are very similar.
Yeah. And then below being is will, and the will directs the mind, and the mind does what the will tells it to do. And then you go down deeper, and the mind has a subconscious and a conscious, and they duke it out and do what they do.
And most of everything that's going on, most of it's in the subconscious.
Right, and that's why I do thought coaching because, anybody that just wants to work just purely on their thinking would be a great referral to me because that's my whole thing is I help people move thoughts from the unconscious to the conscious, and then they can decide whether or not they want to act on that thought. As long as that thought is in the unconscious, they can't choose whether or not to act on that thought.
Right.
And so real freedom, and if you want to talk real power is the ability to move things from your unconscious to your conscious, because then you have the power of whether you're going to act on that thought. As long as that thought is in the unconscious, you don't have the power of choice.
Right.
You have
Now,
no freedom.
I don't like broccoli. Why? Do you not like the taste? No, I've always not liked broccoli. You ever taste it? No. I don't like broccoli. And then when you unpack that, and I don't care, I like broccoli, but my point,
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm with you.
pack that, it's like, oh, well, everyone in my family don't like broccoli. This came from my mom, didn't like it. And why didn't she like it? Because, well, her mom was serving broccoli on the plate that the night that her dad left her. It's like you get into this weird, family shared trauma that's passed down without even knowing the roots of it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I remember when I discovered that I grew up in a home with no emotional maturity.
Yep. No,
No
I,
emotional intelligence. It's just, it wasn't there, and it was like, and it took me a long time to understand that and figure out what I was going to do about it and stuff, but once I understood it, then I had the power to do something about it,
yep.
you know.
You talk about the experiences over time. A buddy of mine, he told me that when he was newly married, his wife would make roast, and she'd always cut it into two. You'd take a roast and cut it in half and put it into two pans and bake it. He's like, weird. Why don't you just put it in one and stick it in the oven? And his wife did this for him. It's like, why do you do this? So that's the way my mom did it all the time.
Yeah.
And then finally, I don't know, maybe 6 months later, they see her parents and he says, ask your why, ask your mama why. And this says, Mama, I make my roast this way because you made it that way. Why do you make it that way? And she said, Honey, I don't make it that way. I put it in one in the pot. And she says, No, you when we were growing up, it was always in two pots. And she said, Oh my gosh, honey, when you were a little girl, we lived in a small house and our oven was so small that I couldn't put the whole roast in there at one time. So I would cut it in half and put half in and bake it and then bake the other half. That's why we had it in two pots. And yet, so meanwhile, this is a generational, and like you don't even know why you're doing it. Now, that brings up the question that I pose, which how much of what we do and don't do, how much of our likes and dislikes are over inane things that just happened well before our time. And that's where the work that you're doing, this exploring your mind, I think that's where we really start opening up and where, taking it from the subconscious to the conscious for me is why why do I get a weird feeling about this? Why does this make me uncomfortable? And really unpacking that.
And it works both ways too. I mean, so
Why does this make me feel so good? Yeah.
it's like I wondered why I always had this affinity for black people, and I remembered that when I was a kid, Julianne pretty much raised me, and
Got it.
she was just the personification of loving care. I mean, I loved her, and she loved me, and it was like, man, the world was good as long as she was in it, and she was a black lady, and it was like, and every time, like I mean, and after I sort of engage with someone and I see them as a separate person, but my initial out the door is every time I see a black person, I experience the loving feelings I had for Julianne,
Gotcha. Yep. Very good.
So I mean, it can work for us and against us both.
Right. And well, that brings us to implicit bias
Yeah.
or implicit biases. I'm an adjunct professor
Awesome.
for a local college, and
Awesome.
I teach a class on implicit bias.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And these are the things that you don't even know you have the bias.
Right. Right.
This isn't like overt biases, or racial bias or this just overt action because I do not like XYZ group. It's just, it's that underlying because this person belongs to XYZ group, I'm going to go ahead and say he's suspicious or he's good or
Right.
this person is doing right or this person is doing wrong based upon an association that's
Right.
not the actual facts at hand and the observations present. So the idea is you can't change them. You can't change those biases. I mean,
No, no, but you can make them
not
conscious.
in the moment you can't. But if you're aware of them and identify them, then you can stop those thoughts from interfering with, for law enforcement, from interfering with what you're actually doing and reasonable suspicion based upon articulable facts, not underlying assumptions made based upon pre-existing biases.
Right, exactly. exactly. I mean, it's the when we're aware of it, we have a choice about whether we're going to act on it or not.
Exactly. Well, and then that's straight back to your work.
Yeah, and it's like, and I try to tell people, I says, people that go to anger classes, they don't go to anger elimination classes, they don't go to anger healing classes, they don't go to rid your anger classes, they go to anger management classes because you're going to be angry, right?
Right.
You're going to be angry, but you don't have to act on it. You can learn to be, in
Sure.
the story I tell is that, when I walked in, I mean, this is 40 years ago or more, no, more than that, 45 years ago or more. I walked in on my first wife in bed with another guy, and the first thing that I came to my mind is I have martial arts training, I can kill them both, and that's exactly what I want to do. And but I didn't act on that. I had another thought that was there's a good chance that if I do that, I'll go to prison.
I don't want to go to prison. Yeah.
And is it worth expressing my anger in this situation to risk going to prison? No, I'm getting a flight home. You know,
Yeah, no,
but
I get it.
was I angry? Oh, I was
So,
angry.
so I mentioned that ex. So we went to counseling. And I'm trying to save the marriage. She's ready to go, and we'll go to counseling. She don't want to go. She picks counselor. Long story short, real man hater, blah blah blah, and similar type story. In that I didn't catch her in bed with someone else, but like she says she's going to her girlfriend's house, and she didn't come home when she said she was. Called the girlfriend. The girlfriend's like, "Oh no, she wasn't here. Oh wait, is this girl? Okay, yeah, she was here. Oh, she's asleep on the couch. Gotta go. So when she does come home, I'm rather angry and said some choice words, slammed the door, and stormed out and sped off. And so we get this counselor, and the counselor's like, "I think you got this anger problem." It's, I don't think so, but okay. So she recommends me to an anger management counselor, and I go to anger management, and the guy's like, "Yeah, you take the Scantron test, and all the questions, you hate your mom type stuff." And then I sit down with the guy, and he's like, this is in the 90s, $20 cash. I don't do insurance. Um, all right. So I interview, and he says, come back tomorrow. I came back the next day, and he says, well, the Scantron, I could have told you that. You don't have an anger problem. Um, Anger is a natural emotion, stimulus response. He said, no, there's two kinds of anger. There's conditional and there's situational. Situational is what you experience, stimulus response. Conditional, there are some guys that are just jerks. They walk around with a chip on their shoulder. That ain't you. So he says, I'll tell you what, let's do the 10 sessions, and we'll go through that. You'll be my first client who's not under court order. That's a true story. So, all right, yeah, that's fair. So I said, okay, I'll do this,
I
but
probably arrested some of your clients.
exactly. Do this on the caveat that I was like, okay, just I don't want that psycho mumbo jumbo. I don't want that. Well, how does this make you feel? Talk to me like like grown up. And he said, well, you know what? Normally I'd say no, but you don't really have an anger problem, so yeah, it'll be a nice change of pace. I said, okay, cool. And so he says, all right. So the first order of business right now. You get angry, you yell, you slam door, you speed off. He said, change the order, change the sensitivity knob. When you get angry, leave. Don't yell. Go scream at the trees. Go kick the trees, kick the dog, whatever. Don't show anger in front of her at all. Walk out before you do. I said, all right. And so literally like 2 weeks later, I'm at the house and she's going off on something. And she says, you know what? You don't even care about this relationship. You don't even care enough to get angry anymore. I'm like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Yeah, that's a no win. But nonetheless, but it's true. If you slow things down long enough to evaluate, all right. If you can Emotions are a really strong thing. And I mean, truly,
Indeed, they are.
political movements are based on emotions. Nowadays, this person, if he gets elected, is going to kill all of your children. Okay, whatever. Hold on. It's all driven by emotion. And if you can step out of the emotion long enough to say, hold on, I'm angry, but I'm angry, but that's an emotion. All that's doing is clouding my decision-making ability right here. Or vice versa. Man, this girl, oh, I feel really, I think I love her. She, kisses me better than anyone ever has. Okay, slow your roll. That's an emotion. Look at, look at everything here before you make logic-based decisions. We'd be in a lot better place.
Yeah, it's a whole interesting thing, I mean, and there are emotional ties that I feel that I still don't understand even at 71 years old and even having meditated every day for more than 40 years. There's
And you probably
there's still new frontiers for me.
Sure, absolutely. And you will always be chasing that because when you unlock one door,
Yeah, 4 more
oh,
open. Yeah.
guess what?
Yeah.
Guess what? Guess what's behind that door? A whole slew of other thoughts, feelings, emotions that you're going to have to sort through.
Yeah, indeed that is my experience.
That's how life works, man. But that's good that you're on the journey.
Oh yeah, no, I mean I don't think I would be enjoying the health and well-being that I am otherwise. I really obviously can't prove that to anybody, but that's my belief,
And you know what? That's a valid belief.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, like I said earlier, Blue Zones Project says have a purpose. That's if having a purpose will give you longevity. And not just longevity, but it makes life so much better.
Yeah, there's a quality, it's quality of life, not just quantity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen people who are just I mean, they're smiling through horrific conditions because they got a purpose. That's what it's about, man.
Well,
Have
awesome.
a purpose and chase it.
Well, this has been great. I've really enjoyed spending the time with you, and
Same here.
I'm gonna be back in touch with you for the review, and then also, if you think of anything that I can do to help you, let me know
All
because
means, I
we're,
will. And
we're all on the same team,
sounds good.
and like I said before, if you have people that you think, would be good guests and
I've
would be
already
a good
got one I'm
experience,
thinking of that I'm going to
I
connect.
appreciate that. Thanks. And
Yeah,
and
friend of
and
mine, Wallace.
and I'm gonna email Chris back and thank him for introducing us.
Sounds good, sir. Well, I appreciate your time.
Yeah, no, it's been wonderful. I've really enjoyed myself. Thank you so
All
much.
right. Have
All
a
right,
great
take care.
evening.
All right, bye.